Was God. We look at the passage that says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. We know about the passage of Scripture that says there are three that bear record in heaven: the Father, the Word, and the Spirit. How many of you know the Father, of course? But what is the Word? Well, we know that Jesus is the Word.
The Son.
And it says after that passage that these three are one.
You have to understand, every 12-year-old at that point would know the law.
They'd have it memorized.
Yeah, they would have it memorized. What they were amazed at him was his understanding.
Absolutely. I'll go into that now then. Going into what Tim just said, not only did every child of his age know the law, as in they knew of it, they had it memorized. It was something that was instilled in them. It was something that was ingrained in them. But what amazed the people wasn't the fact that he knew the law. It wasn't the fact that he knew, these scriptures or the Mosaic laws and what have you. What astonished them was his understanding. I should have written this down, but I passed it up what I was going to talk about as far as the sacrifices and what have you. See, he knew what these things meant. We know that, we know that the cross represents salvation. We know what happened on Calvary. But a lot of us don't know why that saved us. When we go back and we look at the garden with Adam and Eve, we see their downfall and what have you. The Word does say through one man sin came into this world, right? So we know by one man that it could leave. But what happened with Adam and Eve in the garden? Those were two separate people, weren't they? My question for you is, when did Eve get her name? When was she named?
As soon as he got her. As soon as she was created, right?
Where does it say that?
It doesn't, I just got that.
Assume.
If you go to, I'll read it to you real quick while we're on the subject, because I think it was very interesting. Because God considered Adam and Eve as one person, I believe. Because we know from reading Genesis, it says that a man would leave his father and cleave to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. And there's a reason why I believe that. Let me read it real quick. Because Eve doesn't get her name, from my understanding, until the 3rd chapter in Genesis, if I'm not mistaken. Let me read it to you. Shouldn't be that hard to find in the beginning of the book, but I'm making it let's see. Let me see. Give me just a moment. The fall of man. Yep, this is it.
In verse 20.
It's in verse 20. So I just want to read this to you, starting from the 14th verse on. And the Lord God said unto the serpent, because thou hast done this, thou art cursed above all the cattle, above every beast of the field. Upon the belly thou shalt go, in dust shalt thou eat all the days of thy life. And I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed. It shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt be bruised his heel. Let me see. Going on. Unto the woman he said, I will greatly multiply thy sorrow. Notice it doesn't say unto Eve. It says unto the woman, I will multiply thy sorrow, and thou shalt. Let me just move on down to the 18th, or the 19th, or 20th verse where you said, and Adam called his wife's name Eve, because she was the mother of all living. It was after the downfall in the garden that Eve received her name.
Well, that's not necessarily true. That's a summary there at the end.
Amen. But
I mean, I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily true.
this is where she was first named in the Bible. I'm not saying she didn't have that before, but it says at this time he called her wife Eve. I tend to believe that this is where it was fulfilled. Because I believe that God did see them as one.
See, we don't know how long they were in the garden.
Absolutely, they could have been around for a long
I'm sure he
time.
didn't walk around calling her woman.
Right.
Woman?
Why not?
Well, I don't know. You know, it's very likely that they did walk together. You know, that you got to understand, this is all brand new. There were no social constructs of, you know, this is how things should be. Because a lot of that stuff came around after the fall in the garden. Because that was when man was able to determine for themselves what was good and evil. We know that that's what the fruit did. It was the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So when they partook of the fruit, it was no longer what did God consider good. It was, what do I consider good?
Wow.
You know, you could ask a thief, and they're able to justify their actions based on what they perceive as being good. Well, I'm stealing, yeah, but I'm stealing for the sake of eating. Or I'm stealing for the sake of doing this, or so I can get enough money to get this business going, or this, that, or the other. It's for what men determine for themselves what is good and evil. But going back to the sacrifice, you know, going back to the fig leaves, you know, what they did and why the sacrifice of Christ was so important and what it meant and what it represented. We know that Adam and Eve, when they were in the garden, after they did this, they found themselves to be naked. So they covered themselves with fig leaves. And we know that later on, God killed an animal and covered them with it. But what does the fig leaves represent? And why was it important, or that God in that moment decided to slay this animal in order to clothe them? Well, you see, this reflects people of the world today. People know what they are. People know who they are. People know that they're not good.
You know,
What's
I just looked something up. When it says he called her Eve because she's the mother of all living, Eve is the English name given for a female derived from the Latin name Eva, in turn originating from the Hebrew word, and then it spells out the Hebrew word, and then it's in English it's Shava or Hava. Shava, to breathe. Shava, to live. It says Shava twice, but it says Shava to breathe or Shava to live or to give life. Thus, the meaning of Eve is living.
Oh,
That's why.
that's interesting.
That's why she was called Eve, because she's the mother of all living.
Remember? Anyways, going on to the sacrifice, I forgot where I was getting at.
I'm sorry.
Oh, that's no problem at all. Going into the sacrifice, the fig leaves, that's where I was getting. See, the people that understand who they are, or the people that know that they're bad, they don't like to see themselves as that way. So what they do is they cover themselves in fig leaves, or they cover themselves in good works. See, well, I know I'm a bad person, but if I hold the door open for this woman, well, now I'm not a bad person anymore because I did a good deed. See, God seen that, he said, no, you need my covering, you need my forgiveness, you need this. You know, so the fig leaves represented good works, right? You know, trying to cover up yourself with good works to try to, you know, distort or create the illusion that you were something good, that you weren't naked. You know, but the Lord had to be that covering. But the sacrifice had to be made for him to say, you know, I forgive you. Anyways, moving on into the, I think it's...
You know, to go back before you do, the Hebrew word for man and male and female is ish and isha.
Ish and Isha? Okay.
That's all.
All right, I thought I was waiting for, I guess I'll
I mean,
just
it's
say...
just, you know, ish is male and isha is female. And woman means man with a womb.
Right. Anyways, it goes on and says, when they had performed all the things, oh, I already read this one, but they supposed, we're down in the 45th verse, when they found him, they turned back again to Jerusalem seeking him. And it came to pass that after 3 days they found him in the temple, sitting in the midst of the doctors, both hearing them and asking them questions. And all that heard him were astonished at his understanding and his answers, implying that he was giving them, or he was speaking to them as well, not just asking them questions and retaining information like a sponge, but he had a greater understanding. Moving on, it said, and when they saw him, they were amazed, and his mother said unto him, Son, why hast thou dealt with us? Behold, thy father and I have sought thee sorrowing. implying that, what's it like to lose your kid and just not know where they're at? Obviously, they were worried.